A devoted mother raises her husband's 2 children as her own, believing deeply in the quiet family life they've built together. Her husband often praises their children's teacher, Miss Claire, a warm, patient woman who seems genuinely invested in the kids' success. At first, the narrator sees her as an ally, even a friend. But small things begin to feel off: late night messages, her husband dressing unusually well on school days, secretive smiles, and a strange tension whenever Miss Claire's name is mentioned. She pushes the doubts away until one afternoon, she accidentally discovers a string of intimate messages between her husband and the teacher. The affair had been going on for months, right under her trusting eyes. Heartbroken but determined to protect the children, she quietly gathers evidence, confronts him, and refuses to let their home become a battleground. The community soon finds out. The school becomes involved. Miss Claire faces professional consequences. The husband's betrayal costs him his marriage, his children's trust, and his dignity. The narrator slowly rebuilds her life not through revenge but through strength. She finds independence, emotional clarity, and a healthier future for her children. By the end, she reflects gently on what it means to reclaim one's worth after being deceived by someone you built your world around. I've learned that a family doesn't break in one loud moment. Sometimes it breaks quietly, like the soft snap of a branch you didn't know was holding everything together. And for me, that snap happened the day I saw my husband smile at our children's teacher, in a way he hadn't smiled at me in years. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the morning when everything still felt normal, or at least when I still believed it was. The day started with the smell of butter and cinnamon. I was standing in our little kitchen, flipping French toast for the kids while the kettle hissed behind me. The windows were cracked open just enough to let in the early breeze, and the sounds of our neighborhood filtered through. Car engines, a barking dog, someone laughing too loudly at something on their porch. My son, Adam, sat at the table with his backpack already zipped and ready, tapping his pencil against the wood like he was practicing a rhythm only he could hear. My daughter, Chloe, half asleep, had her cheek smushed against her cereal bowl. And my husband, Mark, well, he was the last one to come in like always. He walked in while adjusting his shirt, smoothing out the collar with those practiced strokes that once made me feel chosen special. That morning, though, something in the gesture felt too careful, too deliberate. "You look nice today," I said, sliding the French toast onto plates. He shrugged like he barely noticed. "Big meeting," he said. "Gotta look the part." He said that a lot lately. Big meeting. So many meetings for a man whose job rarely required more than jeans and a decent polo shirt. "Mom," Adam's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. "Can we go early today?" Miss Claire said she'd show me the snakeskin in the science room. Behind him, Mark chuckled. "She's really good with the kids. I swear, she's the best teacher they've had." He said that a lot, too. Too much, if I'm being honest, but back then I brushed it off. After all, Miss Claire really was good with them. She was gentle with Chloe's shyness, patient with Adam's curiosity, and she had a way of making every parent feel like their child was the brightest star in her classroom. I remember thinking, I wish more teachers were like her. I remember thinking, we're lucky. Funny how luck can turn out to be anything but. We drove the kids to school together that morning, which was rare. Mark usually left earlier, but he claimed he had time to spare. And maybe I should have noticed it then, the way his eyes followed Miss Claire as we approached the classroom door, the way her cheeks warmed when she saw him, like someone had quietly lit a candle inside her, but I didn't. Because why would I? You don't go searching for betrayal in the faces you trust. She greeted us with that smile she always had, bright, warm, just a little too much for 8A. "Good morning. The kids were talking yesterday about the class garden project. They're very excited. They talk about it nonstop." I laughed. Adam even asked if we could start composting at home. "Oh, that's wonderful." Her voice caught, just for a second. A tiny pause, then she recovered. At the time, I told myself she'd just run out of breath or maybe swallowed the wrong way. But now, when I replay that moment, it feels like something else, like she saw something in my face that made her heartbeat trip over itself. But I didn't know any of that then. I was just a mother dropping off her children, smiling at a teacher who seemed too good to be true. When the kids ran inside, Mark lingered too long. He adjusted the strap of Chloe's backpack, even though she wasn't wearing it anymore. Then he laughed at something Miss Claire said, even though I didn't hear a joke, and then she touched his arm, just with her fingertips. Light, quick, but familiar. "See you later," she said softly. Not "see you both later," just you. He didn't correct her. And something in me, some buried animal instinct shifted, not panic, not jealousy, just a whisper. A whisper I ignored. The rest of the day moved the way busy days do. I went to work, I returned calls, I handled bills, cleaned up after dinner, and helped the kids pack their backpacks for the next morning. Mark came home later than usual. He texted, running late, more meetings. The usual line. When he walked through the door, his hair was neater than when he left. His shirt was pressed around the collar again. His eyes were too bright for someone who claimed to be tired. Long day, I asked, "Yeah, you know how it goes," but I didn't because he never told me more than that. He kissed me on the cheek, fast, barely there, then walked past me toward the shower, and that was when I saw it. A tiny smudge on his collar, barely noticeable, a soft peaky color. At first I thought lipstick, but it didn't look like lipstick. It looked like the kind of cheap, chalky classroom makeup teachers wear when they're too exhausted for anything else. I touched it with my thumb. It came off. "Mark." I called after him. "Yeah, you've got something on your collar." He glanced back, eyes flicking to the spot, then shrugged casually. "Probably Chloe's paint. You know how messy she is." He laughed and kept walking, and for the first time in our marriage, I didn't laugh with him. That night, as he slept beside me, facing the wall instead of me, I lay awake listening to the humming of the ceiling fan, watching shadows from passing cars crawl across the bedroom walls. I thought about the smudge. I thought about Miss Claire's lingering smile. Her two bright eyes, the way she'd paused earlier, as if something inside her slipped when she looked at me. I thought about how Mark had taken the long way home that morning, how he'd walked ahead of me at the school, how he'd barely touched me, barely spoken. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, overthinking, stressing, but the whisper in my chest wouldn't quiet. Something was changing, something I couldn't yet see, but could feel like cold air seeping under a closed door. I didn't know it yet, but the truth was coming. And when it arrived, it would tear through the life I thought I had, leaving nothing but pieces I'd have to learn to rebuild myself. If I'm honest, the first real tremor came a few days later, small enough that it could have been ignored, but deep enough that it lodged itself in my gut. It was a Wednesday, the kind of day where nothing extraordinary happens, the kind of day where the routines you've built over years are supposed to hold steady. I was in the living room, folding laundry into the neat, perfect stacks I'd always made for our family. Adam liked his shirts rolled, Chloe preferred them folded flat, and Mark never cared as long as they were clean. Or at least, that's what he always said. I heard his phone buzz on the kitchen counter once, twice. Then a third time in quick succession. Mark was upstairs in the shower, and normally I wouldn't even think to check his phone. We weren't the kind of couple who kept secrets. Or maybe we were, and I was just the last to know. The buzzing continued. Little vibrations that felt strangely urgent. Finally, I walked over. The screen lit up before I even touched it. "Claire, I'm at school. Can you talk?" Then another. "Claire, please, it's important." My breath caught. Not because of the name. Well, not only because of the name, but because the contact photo wasn't just her school portrait. It was a picture I'd never seen before. She looked softer, holding a mug, smiling in a way that didn't look like a teacher smiling at a classroom. more like a woman smiling at a man she trusted. The phone buzzed again. Claire, I can't stop thinking about earlier. Earlier when? Earlier what? I stared at the screen, the messages blurring for a second as the air left my lungs. For a moment, I felt like I was floating outside my own body, watching myself from above, watching my trembling fingers hover over a truth I wasn't ready for. I didn't open the messages, not then. I just backed away slowly, like I'd stepped too close to a cliff without realizing it. The shower turned off upstairs, and suddenly I was moving fast, shoving towels into the laundry basket, pretending I had been busy the whole time. My heart was pounding so loudly I swore he'd hear it from across the room. He walked into the hallway, towel draped around his waist, hair dripping. "Hey," he said casually. "Did my phone buzz? I thought I heard something." I swallowed, lightly, carefully. "Yeah, maybe once or twice. Probably spam." He nodded, but his eyes moved quickly to the counter. Too quickly, too instinctively. He grabbed the phone like it was precious, like it was fragile, like he was afraid someone else might hold it. He didn't mention the messages. He didn't explain the calls. He didn't even pretend. And before I could think of what to say, or even breathe, he walked past me and disappeared into the bedroom. For the rest of the evening, there was a heaviness between us like fog drifting through the house, subtle enough to ignore but impossible to fully escape. He was quieter than usual, smiled less, looked at his phone too often, the way teenagers do when they're in love with someone they shouldn't be. At one point, he left the room to check emails, but I could hear the sound of his fingers tapping too softly for work. The low, almost intimate hum of his voice through the closed door. The awkward mix of guilt and longing that clung to every muffled syllable. I didn't need to hear the words. My heart already understood. The next day, I decided to drop the kids at school alone. Just to breathe, just to watch, just to see. I walked them to Miss Claire's classroom. Everything looked normal, the posters on the walls, the gold star chart, the little reading corner Chloe loved, the warm, sweet scent of crayons and dry erase markers. Miss Claire looked up from her desk and smiled widely. "Good morning," but this time her smile didn't reach her eyes. They flickered quickly to the hallway behind me, instinctively looking for someone or making sure someone wasn't here. "Mark didn't come today?" she asked too casually. "No," I said, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest. "Just me." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. A nervous tell. I'd never noticed that before. "Ah, well, I hope he's having a good morning." The way she said his name, soft, careful, felt wrong. Too familiar, too wrapped in something private. My stomach twisted. "Do you two talk often?" I asked. Her smile faltered, just a hairline crack. "Oh, just school-related things, you know how it is." I nodded. "How's the snakeskin project coming?" I asked to make things feel normal again. She blinked, confused. "The what?" "The snakeskin. Adam said you were showing him one." She shook her head. "No, I haven't brought anything like that." A chill crawled over my skin. So he lied over something so small, so unnecessary. Why? Because he needed an excuse. Because he needed the kids there early. Because she needed him there early. I thanked her, walked away, and held myself together until the kids were out of sight. Then I stood in the hallway, staring at the floor tiles until they blurred. My heart wasn't whispering anymore. It was screaming. That evening I tried to test him. Nothing dramatic, just questions. "How was your day? Any big meetings? Did you go by the school today?" "Yes." Yes, and interestingly, no. He claimed he hadn't, but Claire had already told me otherwise without saying a word. And the lie was so smooth, so practiced, so effortless that something inside me cracked a little, not fully. Not loudly, just enough for air to slip in through the fracture. 3 days passed like this, small lies, quiet glances, late nights, more messages than usual. I wasn't ready to confront him yet, but I was watching now, listening, collecting every detail, every shift in tone, every moment that didn't add up. Because something in me knew the truth wasn't just coming, It was already here, hiding in plain sight, breathing in my home, sitting across from me at the dinner table, and laughing with my children. What I didn't know was that the moment of truth, the true discovery, was going to hit me harder than anything I had imagined. And it would happen in the place I least expected, in the one place I thought I could trust, my own home. I wish I could say things got better after that night, after the rose petals incident, after the dinner gone wrong, after the way my husband's face drained of color when he realized I wasn't as clueless as he thought. But what really happened was quieter and somehow worse. The shift began in small, almost invisible ways, the kind of changes you don't see until you're already drowning in them. Broken heart, the distance that pretends to be normal. My husband started leaving for work just a little earlier. 10 minutes on Monday, 20 on Tuesday. By Thursday, he was out the door before I even finished tying the kids' shoelaces. He'd murmur something like, "Big week, lots of meetings," as if saying it casually made it true. But the tone had changed. It wasn't guilt, it wasn't stress, it was avoidance. He couldn't look me in the eye in the mornings anymore. And the kids noticed more than he realized. "Mama, why does Dad smile at Miss Claire more than us?" My daughter asked me this on a Wednesday afternoon, sitting in the back seat with her knees pulled to her chest. She said it so gently, almost apologetically, like she was afraid of hurting me. My heart cracked in a place I didn't even know existed. "What do you mean, baby?" I asked, turning in the driver's seat. She shrugged, eyes lowering. "When you dropped us off yesterday," he smiled at her like when he sees his birthday cake. The kind of smile kids only recognize when it's special. The kind of smile I hadn't seen from him in months. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to reassure her, tell her she misunderstood, tell her grown-ups just act differently sometimes. But lying to her felt like teaching her to lie to herself in the future. So I simply said, "Thank you for telling me, sweetheart." And that was the moment I realized my children were becoming witnesses in a story they never asked to be part of. Mobile phone, the message I was never supposed to see the next crack came on a Saturday morning. He was in the shower. His phone lit up on the nightstand, and at first I wasn't going to touch it. I'm not that woman. I never wanted to be that woman. But when the screen lit up, the preview showed part of a message. "You were right, your wife really doesn't suspect a thing," read. My stomach dropped. I didn't even need to tap the notification. Just that one line rearranged the entire architecture of my world. My hands shook, but I forced myself to breathe, shut my eyes, and focus. In that moment, I wasn't a jilted wife. I wasn't a broken-hearted woman. I was a mother, a protector, someone who needed the truth not for revenge, but for clarity, for survival, for the roadmap out of the storm. By the time he stepped out of the bathroom, whistling as if nothing was wrong, I had already made a silent promise to myself. This ends soon. One way or another, cloud with rain the day everything felt too loud, the tension in our home grew thick, a fog made of unspoken words. Meals were quieter. The kids stopped asking him to help with their homework. He avoided sitting beside me on the couch. Even the way he closed doors became different, softer, careful, like he was afraid of drawing attention to himself. One night I found myself standing alone in the kitchen after everyone was asleep, staring at the same pot of water boiling over and over. The house felt too loud. My own heartbeat felt too loud. I didn't cry, not yet. I just stood there and let the truth settle in, even though I hated every inch of it. He wasn't just drifting away. He was building a new world somewhere else with someone else, and pretending I was too naive to see the construction happening. Memo, the journal entry that changed everything had happened on a rainy Thursday. I was cleaning the boys' room when I found my steps and small blue notebook under his pillow, the one he used to draw superheroes in. But this time, the page wasn't a drawing. It was a short diary entry written messily in pencil. Dad took us to school early so he could talk to Miss Claire again. She hugged him. "I don't think Mom is supposed to know." I sat on the edge of the bed, the notebook trembling in my hands, My children had been carrying this secret alone. They were watching everything, processing everything, figuring out the truth before I ever wanted them to. It wasn't just my marriage breaking. It was their childhood innocence being chipped away, piece by piece. Crescent moon, the night I finally admitted it to myself that night, after everyone slept, I walked onto the porch and sat there in the dark, listening to the quiet hum of the neighborhood. I whispered the truth out loud for the first time. He's having an affair. The words tasted like metal. Like something old and cold buried under my tongue, but saying it didn't break me, it steadied me, it reminded me of who I was before heartbreak tried to rewrite me. A woman who had survived worse. A mother with a backbone made of iron and softness braided together. Someone who would not let lies define her home. And deep in that quiet night, I made another silent promise. I am not going to be the last one to speak in this story. I will not be erased. I don't remember walking into the house. I don't remember putting my keys down or taking off my shoes or even exhaling. All I remember is the feeling, a cold, thin thread pulling tight in the center of my chest, as if my body already knew something my mind hadn't caught up with yet. The kids were in the living room drawing. Jacob held up his paper proudly. "Mom, look, I made a dinosaur family." I smiled, the kind of smile that only lives on the face, not in the heart. "That's beautiful, baby." I kissed the tops of their heads, smelling crayons, shampoo, and innocence, and told them I needed to rest for a second. I walked straight to the bedroom. My phone was still in my hand, warm from how tightly I'd been gripping it. Earlier, in the car, I'd seen a notification flash across the screen while I was texting my sister. A name, a preview, Claire, same time tonight, I miss you already. At first, I thought it was a different Claire. A coworker, a family friend, anyone else, but the profile picture, it was her, the teacher, the woman my husband insisted was just dedicated to the kids. I'd clicked it, heart hammering against my ribs, and what I saw, I felt it like thunder inside my bones. Now, sitting on the edge of our bed, I unlocked the phone again, just to confirm that it hadn't been some kind of hallucination. But it wasn't. It was all still there, message after message, week after week, a slow, burn betrayal written in tiny bubbles of casual intimacy. "Claire, you made my morning. Him, because of last night. Claire, I can still feel you." My breath caught. I clamped my hand over my mouth, not to keep from crying, but to keep from screaming. There were photos, too. Not explicit, but intimate. A picture of his hand intertwined with hers, unmistakable because of the scar on his thumb from the night he cut himself slicing onions. A selfie she sent him from her classroom before the kids arrived, her eyes soft, her smile small and secretive. I scrolled further. There was a voice note. I pressed play. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "Thank you for last night. I don't know how to be without you now." My stomach turned so violently I had to put the phone down. I closed my eyes and leaned back on the bed, staring at the ceiling as tears slipped into my hairline. The humiliation crawled under my skin like fire. How long had this been happening? How many nights had he come home, kissed me, and touched my face with hands that had touched her only hours before? How many times had I thanked her for helping the children while she was stealing their father? A sound left me low, broken, unrecognizable. That was when I heard footsteps in the hallway. The bedroom door creaked open. He walked in holding a grocery bag, smiling like nothing in the world was wrong. "Hey, babe, you okay?" His voice, familiar, warm, the one I had trusted more than my own, sounded like a stranger's. I didn't speak. I just held up the phone. His smile froze. He didn't blink. For a long moment, the world held its breath. Then he swallowed and said the weakest, most cowardly thing I've ever heard. "It's not what you think." The words snapped something in me. I stood up slowly, not shaking, not hysterical, just quiet, too quiet. "You're sleeping with her," I said. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at the floor. I I care about her, yes, he said finally, but it's complicated. A laugh escaped me. It wasn't a happy sound. Complicated. You're married. I'm your wife. These are your children. He stepped forward, reaching for my hand. I pulled away so sharply he flinched. He tried again. Please listen. Claire understands things you don't. She supports me in ways. The air around me went still heavy. You don't? There it was. The final blow. My vision blurred with anger so hot it hummed. She supports you. I whispered. By destroying your family. He pressed his hands to his face, breathing hard. I didn't mean for it to happen. Then what? You tripped and fell into her classroom. You accidentally texted her for 8 months. He winced. Look, he said, voice shaking. I've been stressed. The kids, work, money. It all just piled up, and she was there. I stared at him. That's your excuse, that she was there. He looked small, not guilty enough to erase the betrayal, not remorseful enough to make any difference. I never wanted to hurt you. He whispered. You didn't just hurt me, I said. You broke our children's home. You lied to me every day. You let me look her in the eyes while you were sleeping with her. His jaw clenched. We didn't mean for it to go this far, he said quietly. The phrase stabbed me, we. He closed his eyes. I saw it in his face, the truth settling into the air like dust after an explosion. There was no accident, no moment of weakness, no misunderstanding. This was intentional, repeated, chosen. I felt something inside me crystallize, not anger, not grief. Clarity. This ends today, I said. Get out of this house. He lifted his head, eyes wide. What? I live here. We can work through. No, I said, voice firm and steady. You don't get to blow up our life and then sleep in the bed you ruined. He tried to approach me again. I stepped back. Leave, I repeated now. The kids' laughter floated from the living room, a cruel contrast to the ruins forming in my chest. He looked toward the hallway, guilt flickering in his eyes. They're not babies anymore, he muttered. They'll understand someday. I stared at him in disbelief. No, I said they won't. He grabbed his jacket with trembling hands, stuffing random things into a backpack, charger, shirts, toiletries, moving like a man who'd been caught in a fire of his own making. When he walked out, he didn't slam the door. He closed it gently, and somehow that hurt more. The house fell into a strange, ringing silence. I sank to the floor. That was the moment the betrayal became real. Not when I saw the messages, not when he admitted it, but when I knew I was now raising our children alone. Not because he died, not because life forced my hand, but because he chose someone else, a teacher, a woman I had admired, a woman I had trusted with my babies, and she had been holding their father in her arms while smiling at me in school hallways. I pressed my forehead to my knees and let myself cry quietly, painfully, and only for a moment. Then I wiped my face, stood up, and went to check on the kids. Because the world could fall apart around me, but those children, they still needed dinner. They still needed homework, help. They still needed me, and I wasn't going to fail them, not like he had. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was crying. Those tears had already dried to salt on my cheeks. But because my mind refused to slow down. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their messages again, their laughter, their plans, the little universe they'd built behind my back. I lay in the dark, listening to the soft breathing of the children asleep in their rooms, reminding myself that the world hadn't ended. Not for them, not yet, but for me it was a new world entirely. By morning, the numbness had turned into something steadier, a quiet, anchored kind of determination. Not anger, not revenge, purpose. I made breakfast slowly, methodically slicing the fruit with exact movements, scrambling eggs without letting myself drift into memory. The kids came down sleepy-eyed, unaware that the foundation of our home now had a crack running straight through it. "Where's Dad?" Jacob asked, rubbing his eyes. My heart hesitated, just for a second. "He's staying with a friend for a little while," I said gently. "Why?" he asked. "Grown-up reasons," I said. "But you're safe, and everything is going to be okay." He nodded, accepting that answer the way only a child can, trusting that the adult in front of him would never lie on purpose. I packed their lunchboxes with a little extra care, more fruit, an extra cookie, love disguised as snacks. When I dropped them at school, Miss Claire was in the parking lot. She was wearing a pale blue dress and a cardigan, her hair pulled into a neat bun. She looked warm, approachable, professional. She looked like a woman who should not have been capable of this kind of betrayal. Her eyes met mine, and for a fraction of a second, I swear her smile faltered. I didn't smile back. She took a few steps toward me, cautious, rehearsed. "Good morning," she said softly. "Are the kids okay?" They seemed a little quiet. I folded my arms across my chest. "They're fine," I said. "Children usually are. It's the adults who make a mess of things." Her face tightened. "Barely, almost invisible if I hadn't been looking for it. I'm not sure what you mean." I tilted my head, studying her. "You don't have to lie to me," I said. "Not anymore." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. I think you might be misinterpreting something." "No," I said. "I'm not." For a long moment, we just looked at each other. Her eyes flickered guilt, fear, calculation, like she was testing which version of herself might save her. She finally whispered, "I never meant to hurt you." I exhaled, slow, controlled. "You didn't just hurt me," I said. "You hurt my children." Her expression faltered. "I care about the children," she said earnestly. "That's the part that scares me," I replied. She took a step back, like my words had reached a place she didn't expect. Before either of us could continue, another teacher called her name. She walked away quickly, her shoulders tight, her steps uneven. I stayed still until she disappeared into the building. Then I got into my car, closed the door, and sat quietly in the silence, hands on the wheel, heart steady. Because I knew what I needed to do, not shout, not expose anyone publicly, not destroy reputations out of spite. I needed to protect my children, and to do that, the truth had to be documented cleanly, calmly, legally. I drove home and pulled out a notebook. Not the kind you hide in a drawer, the kind you show to a lawyer. I wrote down everything, dates of late, night meetings, screenshots of messages, pictures of his car parked outside the school after hours. Notes about the kids mentioning how Dad always helped Miss Claire carry things after school. Piece by piece, I turned my heartbreak into a timeline, into evidence, into something that could stand even when my emotions couldn't. Around noon, my sister called. "Hey," she said cheerfully at first. "I saw you text last night. You okay?" I hesitated, the silence on my end lasting a little too long. Her voice shifted instantly. "Sweetheart, what happened?" I told her everything, not the screaming version. The steady, factual version, the one I'd need later when things got official. By the time I finished, she was breathing hard. "Oh my God," she whispered. "He cheated with the teacher, the kid's teacher. Are you kidding me?" I closed my eyes. "Please don't be angry on my behalf," I said softly. "I need clear thinking right now." She paused, stunned by how calm I sounded. "You're in shock," she said. "No," I replied. "I'm in control." And for the first time since finding those messages, I truly was. That afternoon, I called the school, not the teacher, not the gossiping parents, the principal. When she answered, her voice was warm, professional. "Hello, this is Principal Avery. This is Jacob and Lily's mother," I said. "I need to report something sensitive." There was a beat of silence, the kind administrators are trained to recognize. "I'm listening," she said carefully. I didn't embellish, I didn't dramatize. I simply explained, step by step, what I discovered, and that a teacher had engaged in a relationship with a married parent, creating a conflict of interest, emotional harm, and an unsafe dynamic. "For my children," the principal exhaled sharply. "Do you have evidence?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "a lot." Her voice lowered. "I'm so sorry. Please email me everything you're comfortable sharing. We'll begin an internal review immediately. Thank you," I said. When I hung up, a strange relief washed over me, not satisfaction, not revenge, just the quiet knowledge that truth was finally being moved into the light. That evening, when my husband texted, "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "We will after I speak with a lawyer." He called me instantly, but I let it ring, because this time I wasn't reacting. I wasn't breaking, I was planning, protecting, acting for myself, for my dignity, for my children. And for the first time in a long time I felt strong again. The days that followed unfolded like slow, coming dawn, first gray, then soft, then full of a light I hadn't expected to see again. The school completed their investigation swiftly. Miss Claire was placed on administrative leave, and soon after, she resigned quietly. The community whispered, but not cruelly, more with the kind of concern people feel when something sacred, like trust in a teacher, is broken. My husband attempted apologies, long paragraphs filled with regret, excuses, declarations of love. But there was a hollowness to his words, something that didn't connect with the woman I'd become over the past few weeks. I didn't scream, I didn't throw things or demand explanations he couldn't give. Instead, I protected what mattered. I met with a lawyer. I established custody arrangements. I made sure the children had stability, therapy offered by the school, and a gentle explanation. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that aren't healthy, but that doesn't change how much you're loved. They cried, but children are resilient, and I reminded myself daily that love was still present in their lives, in me, in their routines. In the quiet strength, our home began to grow again. As for me, I slowly rebuilt the parts of myself that betrayal had hollowed out. I went back to work. I took up morning walks again, the ones I used to skip because I was too busy worrying, too busy keeping peace. No one else was keeping with me. I laughed more freely, like my chest finally had space again. And one evening, months later, I sat on our back porch watching the children chase fireflies, their laughter dancing in the air. A soft breeze brushed my cheek, carrying the smell of jasmine from the fence. For the first time since everything shattered, I felt something gentle and real settle inside me. Peace. Not because the story ended perfectly, life rarely does, but because I had chosen myself, I had chosen truth. I had chosen to break the cycle of silence, and in doing so, I gave my children a mother who stood tall, even in the storms. I breathed in the cool night air, exhaled slowly, and let the last pieces of hurt drift away like tiny lights in the dark, fading, then gone. Whatever the future held, I knew this much: I wasn't broken. I was beginning again.